Rafael Devers is almost set to make his spring training debut for the Boston Red Sox. But where will he play? More on today's Locked On Red Sox.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Gabby Maljanian, former ESPN social media associate and now current host also of the Boston Balling podcast. And I'm here to bring you the latest in all things Boston Red Sox Monday through Friday straight to your favorite podcast feed. And it's completely free. So you have nothing to lose because Locked On is your team every day. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to another episode of the show where Rafael Devers still has yet to be talked about a lot because he hasn't made his spring training debut yet, but he is getting closer and closer to that debut. And the big question surrounding Red Sox Nation now is, where is he going to play when he makes his debut? So I'm going to be talking about that on today's show, as well as talking a little bit about Vaughn Grissom, because in the midst of all of this talk about the Red Sox up-and-coming prospects, he's kind of been somebody who's been shoved to the corner a little bit, and people aren't really talking a lot about him. So I'm going to be discussing what he could bring to the team, as well as some other positions that are up for grabs on the Red Sox roster right now come opening day. But Alex Cora was talking about Rafael Devers and mentioned that March 5th is the target date for him to make his spring training debut. Now that his shoulders are back up to speed, he's kind of just making sure in these next few days that everything feels okay. But the March 5th home game against the Rays is the day that he is expected to make his debut in the Grapefruit League lineup. Now, he's obviously been a hot topic of conversation this spring after the Red Sox signed Alex Bregman, who also plays third base, when Devers earlier in camp expressed a reluctance first to the team and later to the media to move off of third base and be more of a DH. He just very much was adamant about not doing that. So if Devers stays at third, Bregman, who, by the way, was the AL Gold Glove winner at third last year, will move to second base. And decisions are still ongoing on that, particularly with the promising young players of Kristian Campbell, who's the number 7 overall prospect, as well as Vaughn Grissom. I'm going to be touching a little bit on that later in the show. But them having the opportunity to maybe win the job at second base. Plus, you have David Hamilton in the mix, too. So there's definitely a lot of moving parts with this. And Alex Cora is trying to navigate them as best as he can. But he did say that Devers will play third this spring. He basically was saying the whole thing is that we're preparing Rafi to play third base. That's part of the progression. He'll DH here and there. I don't know if on March 5th, he'll play third, but we'll get him reps. I think people are making decisions already, and we haven't made decisions. But we'll keep talking to him, and we'll keep talking to Alex. There's a lot of things going on at second base right now. We've got to find a way to get them all in. Devers feels he's the third baseman. We've seen him before, so he's preparing to play third base. In spring training, we'll get him innings at third base. He'll DH too, like the usual spring training. And Alex Cora also mentioned that Bregman will get some reps at second base this spring, but he isn't sure when. So when it comes to Devers, the most important part obviously is his bat, which is one of the most dangerous in the league. And Alex Cora said it will be very fun to have the big boy back in the lineup. So obviously, this whole situation is very much still unresolved. Alex Cora wasn't really giving a definite answer on who's going to play second base and who's going to play third, where Bregman's going to play, where Devers is going to play. But he basically just explained that when Devers is able to come back and play in a spring training game, that he's going to get reps both at third and at DH. It is basically saying don't read too much into where he plays because we're going to continue to rotate guys in. So, for example, because of the fact that Bregman will also be getting reps at third, that doesn't necessarily mean they're for sure going to make Bregman the opening day third baseman. It's just like every spring training. You want to try guys out and see how they look when they play in these certain positions. And then if somebody else is more fit for that position, then they'll play there instead. So it's kind of a mix and match experimental type of scenario to see who might be more fit to do what. So based on what Alex Cora said about Devers, no conclusion should be drawn about for sure where he's going to play. And I do 100% agree with Cora that having his bat back in the lineup is going to be the most important thing, because that's his best aspect of his game that he brings to the table, is having that strong power bat for this team. So I'm definitely excited to see him back in the fold in that regard. So Alex Cora continued to be talking about Devers and basically explained that on Wednesday he'll take live batting practice for the first time this spring. So that should happen at some point later today. He has put himself in position to be ready for that. Cora said he's hit off Traject a lot the last 4 days. They say he looks amazing. I saw him on the field today just working on a few things to pull the ball. Last year, he struggled after injuring that right shoulder on July 23rd in Colorado to get to the pitch inside. So he's working on that, trying to get that feeling, and he looks good. So definitely a promising sign for when he comes back. And it's still no question that despite all of this retooling that the Red Sox have done with their roster by making significant additions, the Red Sox will still need Devers to bash the ball on a regular basis to get back to the postseason for the first time since 2021. And if he does stay at third base, it will be because he earned it with a strong spring training. Cora went on to say he's been working hard with infield coach Jose Flores in the mornings to be more specific with his work. Alex Bregman actually helped him. He gave him a cue to help him defensively, and he has made the adjustment and he's in a good place. So Cora had nothing but positive things to say about Devers and where he is at right now, which is good news to hear if you're a Red Sox fan, because ultimately at the end of the day, we just want to see the Red Sox win games, and Alex Cora just wants to see the Red Sox win games. And if they decide coming into opening day that Devers deserves to be the third baseman, then that's what it's going to be. If they decide going into opening day that they don't feel like he'd be the best option at third, then Bregman will play third. And it's all going to be based on how Devers looks defensively at that position when he starts getting into the fold for spring training games. But he has made some adjustments with his swing in order to compensate and be able to hit more of those inside pitches and tighter strike zones that some of these other pitchers may have that he's going up against. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this all unfolds throughout the rest of the spring. But the biggest thing that I have taken away from all of it is that the Red Sox are going to make the decisions that are best for the organization to help the team win. And it's not going to be based on what guys on the team say or who they think should play where. Cora and company are going to watch and see how the rest of the spring unfolds. And then Breslow will be able to examine the roster come opening day and say, okay, is this the best possible combination of players that we could put on the field right now? Are they playing in the positions that they should be playing in? So as far as the whole third base thing goes, I do feel like Devers is going to absolutely grind, and he's going to be a hot topic of conversation as the rest of this offseason progresses, if you even want to call it offseason at this point. So nothing is guaranteed as we look ahead to how this is all going to progress moving forward. Devers is not promised the third base position, and neither is Bregman. And the fact that Bregman was helping Devers is a great sign for the future moving forward, because it really shows that he's about the team and he wants to see the team succeed as a whole. And if that means Devers playing third base, then so be it for him. He does not have an issue with that. Devers is the one who had the issue with moving off of third base. So I'm hoping that Alex Bregman can continue to serve as a strong mentor for a lot of these younger players as they are eager to learn and make adjustments. And I'm hoping that the way that Bregman is working with Devers projects and carries over into the season, so that if he does play third base, we can see some improvement defensively. Because if Devers shows improvement defensively, I have no problem with him being the opening day third baseman. So hopefully what he's doing to work on things so far heading into his first spring training start that hopefully we can see some positive differences from him come that time. So I'm excited to see how that unfolds. And coming up, I'm going to be talking about a guy who's been kind of forgotten about this offseason with talk of the prospect talent in the system. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about him next. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, I love the no shells variety. It's the perfect grab and go snack for busy days. Whether I'm snacking at my desk, on a road trip, or just need a quick protein boost, they're always my go-to. And if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are a classic favorite. Get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Wonderful Pistachios are delicious. Ever since I started buying them at the store, I literally cannot stop. So I highly recommend you purchasing them too, because as much as I warned you, they 100% are addicting. So don't say that I didn't give you that warning in advance as you go out and purchase these at the store, but I promise you they are absolutely delicious. So you will not be disappointed with these suckers. As the Red Sox start to prepare for opening day and they start to iron out what their roster could look like, there's been a lot of stir surrounding second base. Who's going to be the opening day second baseman? Is it going to be Alex Bregman because they want to keep Devers at third base? I feel like how Devers looks throughout the course of the spring training games will help determine a lot of these other roster decisions. Because if they feel confident that Devers can hack it defensively at third come opening day, then Bregman will start the year at second base. And then Yoshida would stay in the mix full time as the DH. But if they feel like they want Bregman to play third, and if they have a young player who has earned a spot in the starting lineup to be the starting second baseman, they are going to go with one of those guys at second. And one of those guys could be Vaughn Grissom. Now, while you have all of this talk surrounding Kristian Campbell for good reason, he is such a talented player and he's ranked number 7 in MLB Pipeline's top 100, which makes it evident that he has a lot of upside when it comes to this second base battle. But that doesn't necessarily mean he's ready. He only has 19 games and 70 at-bats at AAA Worcester and was drafted out of Georgia Tech less than 2 years ago. So there's a chance that they want to give him more time in AAA. But on the flip side of that, he could be ready because the Red Sox have little doubt in his offensive ability. So for him to win the job, he'll have to have a big spring moving forward. Cora said he's moving well. He had a great day early in camp. He was working on his double play turns and all that. He's moving faster now with the turns. So there is a chance he wins the job. And I would not be surprised if he does, but also at the same time, I could see the Red Sox wanting to keep him in AAA to get some of those reps. Then there's David Hamilton, who actually has played shortstop and second base. And in the Red Sox technical Grapefruit League opener, because their exhibition game against Northeastern didn't count, David Hamilton played shortstop in that game, but he could be used at second base too. And he displayed his value immediately in the game by drawing a walk and stealing a base to open the game, which is classic David Hamilton because he has the speed. And last year, he was a pretty key part of the Red Sox lineup due to some injuries because he put that speed on full display, batting after Jarren Duran in the lineup. But my problem with David Hamilton is that he doesn't have a lot of upside when it comes to his defensive ability or his ability to be consistent at the plate. He's a lefty, and he started to make his case last year when he got a lot more playing time, and he's probably the fastest player in the organization when he stole 33 bases last year, but he does need to improve on his 698 OPS. But he did gain some muscle in the offseason while maintaining his speed and said, I like where I'm at right now. So hopefully I can just keep the weight up and try to stay as fresh as possible. That was my biggest worry, was gaining weight and losing speed. But I ran a lot this offseason, and I feel like I maintained it, if not a tick faster. he is assumed to probably make the team either way because he would be a really valuable player off the bench with his speed and versatility, in the fact that he can play both shortstop and second base. I just don't really think they see him as the everyday second baseman per se, because of the fact that while it's great to have his speed in the lineup, there are other people who are better in other areas of the game. So he could be a good pinch runner in that type of scenario, or be the first one off the bench if somebody were to get hurt. But Vaughn Grissom is another interesting name to discuss here, because he's a guy who hasn't gotten as much hype because of the fact that he has spent a lot of his time in the majors injured. It seems like he's been around for a while, but he's 24 years old, and this could be the season that he's ready to put it all together. Given that the Red Sox traded Chris Sale for him, they'd love to get some return on that investment, that's for sure. Despite all the hype that surrounds Campbell, the Red Sox haven't lost faith in Grissom after one injury-plagued season. Alex Cora did speak on him and said, this guy is a hitter. He's hit his whole career. Just go out there, get your hits, play good defense, and he's moving well. Saw him today taking ground balls, making adjustments. He's a little more explosive, so that's going to help. And Grissom was enthused by the directedness from Cora and being transparent about the second base position. Grissom said, go win the job. That's what he told me, that there's an opportunity to win it. That's all he said to me. I'm sure we'll talk more as spring training gets going. So he's definitely determined to win the job at second base. And when it comes to his numbers from last year, he bat 191 over 105 at bats. He did record 20 hits, but no home runs, scored 10 runs, recorded 6 RBIs, and stole 2 bases with a 246 on base percentage, 219 slugging, and 465 OPS. So obviously those numbers are very tough to see on paper, but we do have to consider the fact that he was injured and wasn't able to stay on the field. And when he was on the field, he had to kind of get back into the swing of things. So that's something I'm definitely willing to keep an eye on, because over the last 7 days of the season last year, he batted 438. And in the last 14 days of the season, he batted 333. So something was starting to click with him there in the last few weeks of the season, because if you look at an even bigger sample size, in the last 28 days, he was also batting 333. So he turned it on in the last month to be able to figure out how to make good contact with the baseball. And I'm hoping that's something that he can carry over into this year, if he was able to figure out how to mechanically adjust his swing and change some little things to make him more successful. One thing to keep an eye on with him is he batted 212 at home with a 241 on base percentage, whereas on the road, he batted just 170 with a 250 on base percentage. So he wasn't hitting nearly as well on the road, which is something that we definitely need to look out for heading into this upcoming season, because you can't have a hitter who's able to hit really well at home and not well at all on the road, because that just doesn't make for a consistently good baseball player. So that's something that I'm hoping that he can implement this upcoming season, is feel a little bit more comfortable at other ballparks away from Fenway. Another notable thing with Vaughn Grissom's numbers, versus right-handed pitching, he batted 179, and versus lefties, he batted 238. So he's a lot stronger against lefties. So that's something to be of note with also, because if he can increase his numbers a little bit, then we could see a lot more consistency from him. And the challenging part is going to be that if he doesn't show that he can hit very well against right-handed pitching, then it's going to be tough for him to be in the lineup every day, because if there's a righty on the mound, why would they put Vaughn Grissom into the game when they can bring in somebody else instead who can hit better against right-handed pitching? So if he wants to be able to be the everyday second baseman and stay in the game consistently, he needs to be able to show that he has the capability to hit against both righties and lefties. And I definitely don't doubt that with some more work and exposure, he could increase those numbers against right-handed pitching. But it's definitely an interesting note to discuss as we think about who could win the second base job. And the reason that the Red Sox feel confident that they could get something special in Vaughn Grissom is because he is the type of guy who just continues to work hard and shows resiliency, and bouncing back from his injury. He just wanted to get back out onto the field, and he's fully healthy now. So the team feels like, which is 100% true, that they just haven't gotten the full version of Vaughn Grissom in terms of what he actually is capable of contributing and providing to this team. And I think it is only fair for them to keep him as an option, because he's kind of just not been able to showcase himself on full display because of the injury. So I'm really excited to see what Vaughn Grissom can do heading into the 2025 season. But when it comes to second base, there are still question marks with all of these guys. Like I discussed with Kristian Campbell, his would be whether or not he's actually ready to come up to the majors yet. Vaughn Grissom's would be, is he going to be able to stay healthy? And if so, what is his ceiling? What's the highest level of potential that we could see from him? Because we really don't know what that is yet. And if that's not very high, then they could run into a problem if he starts the season at second base. David Hamilton is another option. The problem with him is just that he hasn't shown enough consistency offensively in general to be able to have the Red Sox feel confident with placing him in the lineup every single day, but he does provide value in terms of his speed on the base paths. So he, to me, is likely the guy who's going to come off the bench and be that first call up if somebody gets injured. But it is going to depend on how the rest of the spring shakes out for all of these players. There's definitely some potential there and positive aspects of all three of their games, and the Red Sox are going to evaluate how that's going to play out. And again, it also goes back to this Bregman and Devers situation, because if Devers is going to play third on opening day, then Bregman will play second, and then all of these young guys are going to have to start the season in AAA and hope that they can continue to work hard and maybe get an opportunity at some point during the season to come up and play second base in the majors. So definitely lots for the Red Sox still to figure out when it comes to these guys, but I'm definitely not losing hope in Vaughn Grissom. He's a guy who's worked very hard to get back out there, and I'm excited to see what he can bring to the table, because he's certainly a guy who the Red Sox, when they traded for him, felt like had a ton of potential. So we'll have to see how that all plays out. But coming up, I'm going to be discussing other positions that are up for grabs on the Red Sox roster right now. Friendly reminder to subscribe to Locked On Red Sox on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, as I am available Monday through Friday to talk about all things related to this team, major leaguers, minor leaguers. I also bring some fun guests on here and there too to discuss the team. So you definitely won't want to miss any of those exciting guests. Some notable names who have come on in the past: Red Sox pitching coach Andrew Bailey, legendary broadcaster Joe Castiglione, and former Red Sox closer Jonathan Papelbon. So you definitely won't want to miss out on any of those guests if you subscribe to the show. You can also subscribe to Locked On MLB with host Paul Sullivan, aka Sully, who will keep you up to date on all things going on around the league. So if you want to stay in the loop on all of Major League Baseball, check out his show on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts next, right after this, as I do appreciate you making Locked On Red Sox your first listen, and that can be your second. The Red Sox roster is going to start to shape up here over the next few weeks as the Red Sox go through their spring training schedule and start to focus on who's going to be part of the opening day roster for this team and who's not. And one position that's been talked about a lot is the catching spot, because the backup catcher role is not set in stone. They have three catchers currently on the 40-man roster, and Connor Wong, who is very clearly the number one starting catcher based on the moves the Red Sox made this offseason. It showed that they really do trust Wong to be that guy in the number one catching role. And then you have Blake Sabol and Carlos Narváez, both of whom are guys who have a shot to make the opening day roster. Narváez is a lot more known for his defense. He has a great arm, and he has thrown some absolute cannons to second base to throw out some guys trying to steal. So that's a really promising sign, is that arm that he does have, but he does struggle a little bit more at the plate. I saw him barrel one in a spring training game the other day, but he'll get more into the lineup and we'll be able to see how ready his bat actually is. Blake Sabol put up some impressive offensive numbers with the Giants, so he's a catcher who the Red Sox feel could be a promising offensive player that they get to go with Connor Wong. And I would say when it comes to upside versus downside, because Connor Wong isn't a great defensive catcher and they do like him more for his offense, you want to try to have a backup catcher who can play defense well, which is why I feel like Narváez could have a leg up over Sabol when it comes to starting on opening day, just because you want to have your catcher out there behind Connor Wong who can kind of compensate for the weaknesses he has. And we saw Wong struggle behind the plate over the last couple seasons. So I think regardless of who the Red Sox choose, it's going to be somebody that they feel coming out of camp has the best opportunity to put the Red Sox in a position to succeed, because that catcher will be playing a lot of games. Connor Wong will get more of the workload, but that catcher will be the next man up, the guy who has to play in those other games where Wong is resting. So who is that going to be is still up for grabs. I mean, the Red Sox do have some catchers who aren't currently on the 40-man roster in Nathan Hickey, Mark Kolosvari, and Sebi Zavala. They're going to get those guys into more spring training games too, I'm sure, as we have seen them all briefly at some point throughout the course of their time with the Red Sox. But those are guys who will likely stay in the minors and work with the pitchers down there. The three catchers on the 40-man roster right now are likely the ones that they are looking at to decide who's going to be the catching tandem come opening day. And now it isn't to say that whoever doesn't get picked is going to be stuck in AAA for the entirety of their time here, because catchers get hurt too. If a catcher gets hurt, the other one who doesn't get selected would be the next catcher up. So for example, say they do go with Narváez as the backup catcher to Connor Wong, then you look at Sabol, and if Narváez or Wong gets injured, Sabol's the next guy up who will likely take that spot of being the guy who the Red Sox call upon in that time of need to be the new backup catcher if one of those two guys gets hurt. So there's definitely ample opportunities here, but that is not set in stone who is going to catch with Connor Wong. So that's one position that is still up for grabs. And you can kind of argue that the closer spot is still up for grabs too, because even though they've kind of said that there are a few players that they are considering for it, they don't know for sure. I mean, Liam Hendriks may be the guy, he may not. Garrett Whitlock may be the guy, he may not. Justin Slayton may be the guy, he may not. Aroldis Chapman may be the guy, he's hopefully not. So there is still a big question mark surrounding the closer role. And as we go deeper and deeper into spring training, I definitely want to see them all throw in that ninth inning at some point, just to really see, okay, are these guys ready to take on the closing spot? You want to try to, in a close game in spring training, start bringing those guys in and working them onto the mound. So that way then we can say, okay, Garrett Whitlock didn't look super comfortable out there in a ninth inning situation with the Red Sox up by 1 run. So maybe he's not the guy to start as the closer right away. Or Justin Slayton excelled and pitched really well in a high leverage situation in, Thursday's spring training game, or whatever day it is. We trust him right now, so we're going to put him into that spot. So that's something really important for the Red Sox to keep in mind as they progress through the rest of spring training, is who is going to close games. And Alex Cora needs to start working some of these guys into games, as long as they, of course, are medically cleared to go and ready to pitch and everything's all good and there's no reason that they shouldn't be pitching. That should be a concern to the front office. As long as everything's all clear there, I would like to see them all start working in more of those high leverage situations, just so the Red Sox can have a sense early on of who they might make the closer come opening day. And who knows, they might go into opening day and not even name a specific closer, as in not go on record and say, okay, we're going to make Justin Slayton the closer. They might just say, we're going to go into opening day with a few options, and as they start to throw throughout the course of the season, based on how guys do, then later on in the season, we'll name somebody the closer for if we make a playoff run. I could totally see the Red Sox pulling something like that, kind of just relying on Cora to put in the best pitcher at the best time and utilize whoever's there in the right way throughout the course of the season and not necessarily say we have a specific closer. And based on that and how these guys perform, then as it gets to be later and later in the season, if it looks like they're going to be a playoff team, then I could see them saying, okay, we had Liam Hendriks, who really impressed us this year and showed up in a lot of his high leverage situations. And he was somebody who we knew we could send out there and he would be okay. So we're going to have him be the closer that's designated heading into the postseason. So you don't really know how that's all going to play out, but those are the two positions of question still right now for the Red Sox, is the closer role and also the catching position, what those are going to look like and what they're going to be made up of, and their big storylines to look out for as we continue to progress through the course of spring training. But definitely exciting stuff to think about here with this Boston Red Sox team, and I cannot wait to see how they navigate through their schedule this year, because I definitely think they are set up to be a very good baseball team heading into 2025. So we'll see how everything plays out for the team, but I do appreciate you making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of the day. Be sure to tune into Locked On MLB next. Like I always say, keep the faith, go Red Sox, and I'll catch you on the flip side.